The world is becoming increasingly more interconnected, and global infrastructure projects are rushing to keep up with the massive scale of growth. From giant railway projects in the middle of the desert to investments in ports across the world, and even building futuristic cities from scratch, these are some of the largest construction projects happening right now that have the potential to change the way the world works forever. And with that, we welcome you into Shifting Gears. My name's Grayson Harris. It's Carson Sharp over there. Say hi, Carson.
How's it going?
All right. Guys, we're here to talk about some of the biggest construction projects that are happening in the world right now that have the potential to fundamentally change the way that either that region works or the world works, depending on the size of the project. We are, for the most part, staying within supply chain logistics infrastructure because, well, that's our thing. That's what our company is. So with that being said, we're going to get right into it. One of the first projects I started with, Carson, really both of my projects that I were interested in are based in Saudi Arabia, or at least in the surrounding areas. I think they're making a lot of interesting infrastructure projects, a lot of interesting choices, I would say, trying to diversify themselves away from that oil market that they have been for their entire existence, essentially. A lot of it started with, even having the World Cup there a couple of years ago. They're also buying up a lot of sports leagues. They're just trying basically to make themselves a bit more appealing. And one of the ways that they want to push themselves away from that oil market, the Gulf Railway. Have you heard of the Gulf Railway, Carson?
No, I haven't.
Not many people have, because it has been a very start and stop, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen project. But if it does happen, it can fundamentally change the way that 6 different nations can work, essentially. So the Gulf Cooperation Council in Eastern Arabia, it's a network of 6 countries, the GCC. Okay. And what they want to do is they wanted to build a 1,353 mile long railway network connecting all 6 of those countries. Some of the goals would obviously be boosting trade, right? You'd be creating a faster, more efficient mode of transportation for goods, and the railway can significantly reduce transportation costs and times between all the GCC states, right? You can also be used as a logistics hub, just making different cities their own manufacturing or logistics hubs. Creates a lot of jobs, obviously, just constructing something of that size. And another thing that they're really trying to get going, or at least get off the ground in that area, as I will get into much more later, is tourism growth. And this kind of interconnected network of railways can really help that, to help tourists travel from place to place in an area where there are very, very, very few railways. As you would imagine, it's the desert. So really one of the main hurdles that they've had to overcome is the cost. It's hard to estimate exactly how much a project like this would cost, but most estimations say that it's somewhere around $250 billion. Which is one of the biggest, most ambitious projects just from a financial standpoint that is underway right now in the world. Another one of the issues that they would have to come across here is standardization and integration. Right, so you've got 6 different nations that all operate under relatively different standards and laws and regulations regarding transportation, amongst other things. So each GCC state is currently developing its own railway projects with the potential to basically connect them all together in this Gulf Railway project.
What are the 6 countries involved?
The 6 countries that are involved, and I probably should have said this earlier, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman. So each GCC state is basically tasked with completing their own section. And as you would imagine, some of these countries are further along than the others, by a lot. Saudi Arabia probably has the most extensive network in the GCC. They've already got over 2,200 miles of track that's currently operational, which I think is an engineering feat for the area that they are in.
I guess they're also geographically the biggest country out of those. So that,
correct.
That would
so
also
the numbers are also inflated as a result, yes. But the others are so far behind that even if Saudi Arabia wasn't that big, they're still way ahead. The United Arab Emirates, they have a growing network. It's getting there. They boast a pretty well-developed metro system with plans for further expansion. But their main thing that the United Arab Emirates has to their credit is the Etihad Rail. And that one is a giant rail network that connects major cities within the UAE and facilitates freight movement. The UAE National Railway Network was just recently launched, and it aims to further integrate the country's rail infrastructure. So they are absolutely making good headway towards it. So Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, good job, you guys. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman, you guys got some catching up to do. They're all in the earlier stages of their rail development. Now, Kuwait has plans for a national railway network, while Bahrain is exploring a metro system. So different ideas, but they are still allegedly going to be able to connect, right? How does that work? They don't even seem to know because they keep putting it off. The current status of this project, while it was approved in 2009, which feels like a century ago at this point, widespread construction really has yet to begin. Like, has it begun? Has it started? Is there actual progress? Technically, yes. It's crawling, though. And there's been multiple original completion dates. As a matter of fact, 2018 was actually the original completion date. That didn't happen. And then the project suffered, obviously, some setbacks when global oil prices plunged in 2014. Again, talking about how much that region is reliant on the oil markets, which is why they want to diversify a little bit. And just recently, in November of 2023, the GCC committee agreed to have the railway completed by 2030. 2030 is an interesting date because that is when they expect to have a ton of projects in that area done, as I will get into a little bit later in the episode. So overall, the GCC railway project seems to be moving in the right direction individually, but there's still significant work to be done before construction across the entire network not only completes, but begins at this point. So it's an interesting prospect because you've got this area of the world that is so dependent on one commodity that has worked relatively well for them so far. But when you have such a volatile thing that is determining your entire economy, it makes sense why they'd want to add all these infrastructure changes to make trade and tourism and travel and all these things a little bit more seamless.
Try to diversify their economy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think that is an interesting, although possibly far-fetched project. I think, will it be completed? I don't see why not, but I also don't think it's going to be completed nearly to the scale that they originally intended it to be. Otherwise, it would have been a little further along at this point.
Was it going to be mostly passenger rail or freight rail or combination?
It would a combination of both. With a lot of these railway projects, you usually start with it being passenger, and then eventually you build the infrastructure for it to be, trade and otherwise. I think especially in that area, it'd be better to start with passengers.
All those countries are so geographically close together, but really no interconnectivity besides air travel.
Yeah, or driving over some developed roads.
Yeah,
but a lot of them aren't developed either. I tried to look up how are you able to build this much rail on shifting sand dunes, and there are a couple explanations, but I haven't really been able to find like a good one. One of them is basically turning all that sand into clay. That's one thing that you can do. So there's obviously a lot of hurdles and challenges facing it, but I do think that if it even reaches, half of what they expect it to be, it will still boost economy and things of that nature significantly, just because of the lack of infrastructure that is already there. So that's my first one. Carson, what you got for us, man?
My first one is I took a look at a program that China announced recently called the Belt and Road Initiative. Essentially what it is a modern day equivalent of the Silk Road, which existed several hundred years ago. Don't quote me on the date, but
long time ago.
Yeah. But basically the Silk Road, it was a road. It was a land route between China and Southeast Asia, connecting Europe to the Middle East and back. So it facilitated trade among these countries. So the Belt and Road Initiative is the modern day equivalent, and it seeks to create a modern day equivalent with land and maritime routes and increase China's footprint across the world. One of the ways that they're doing this is by Chinese state investment in ports abroad. So they've invested in, it's estimated between 100 to 191 foreign ports in anywhere between 60 and 88 countries across the world. Billions of dollars of Chinese investment to invest and build these ports from nothing, or invest to retrofit and modernize ports across the world. From the Chinese perspective, it's great. It gives them more, I don't want to say oversight, but more exposure globally to project influence to project economic power primarily. But at the same time, there's concern, especially from U.S. military advisors, that it also projects military power across the world, because these ports, they not only will prioritize docking of Chinese cargo vessels, but it also gives them reduced docking fees, priority schedules, and as U.S. military officials say, they also facilitate the docking, resupply, rearmament, and refueling of Chinese naval vessels. Most concerning to the U.S. Navy is a port that the Chinese are looking to invest in Equatorial Guinea, which is on the western coast of Africa, poses a direct threat, so to speak, to the United States East Coast. So just across the Atlantic, which the U.S. military considers our backyard. The U.S. has had mixed success pushing our own influence to try to dissuade countries from allowing Chinese state investment. They've had better success in Europe than they have in Africa. A lot of these countries, frankly, need the investment. And it's hard for the U.S. to say, hey, turn down these billions of dollars that are coming into your country to create jobs, modernize your infrastructure. Just say no to it. A lot of countries, especially developing countries, are not too keen on that and are welcoming the Chinese investment. What that means for the U.S., we already have a global presence. The U.S. military and State Department try to dissuade countries from allowing Chinese investment. But you can see the benefits of it. Even if you're not a Chinese company, you can see the benefits of having modernized ports around the world.
Oh, of course.
To expedite supply chains, streamline processes, and things of that nature. But
that's why it's hard to turn down, because you've got this foreign superpower coming into a second or third world country in some cases and just being like, hey, we got this. We will basically modernize your port. Just let us run it.
Yeah,
and it's
they
hard.
do.
I can see why that'd be appealing for countries that are like, we couldn't even build half of that without your help.
Right. Well, ironically, Costco, which is a Chinese state-owned shipping company, they actually own a heavy percentage of 3 U.S. ports on the West Coast. They own a portion of Long Beach, Los Angeles, and Seattle port. Several years ago, they were actually going to take over full control of a container terminal in Long Beach, but U.S. officials stepped in and killed the deal, citing national security concerns. You know, having any foreign power owning 100% share of one of your biggest container ports, probably not good from, security perspective.
I find this interesting for 2 main reasons. One is it kind of ties in to a story that came out a few months ago or so of there being an investigation into Chinese-made cranes in U.S. ports. Have you seen that?
I actually have seen that. Allegations of these cranes could somehow be used to spy on U.S. ports and
essentially,
U.S. infrastructure.
The allegation is that these cranes can be used to record data of what's being brought in or what's not being brought into those areas. I would assume that there's other surveillance means as well that they're afraid of. I don't know if there are cameras on the cranes or anything like that. Probably, maybe. I'm not so sure. The reason that this is, like a frosty situation is because of the U.S.-China trade war that I guess is still going on in this case, because it may not be the trade war that it was when it started in 2018, 2019, when we're putting all these tariffs and taxes on things.
You're talking about the Section 301 tariffs.
Yeah, I may have butchered that. But
yeah, there was Section 301 tariffs, I guess colloquially called the Trump tariffs, which were enacted over the course of a couple of years in 4 phases to dissuade companies from investing their manufacturing in China.
Exactly.
It was to encourage investment or encourage manufacturing in the United States.
Right.
It's a big one. It's global. It's already happening, and it's continuing to happen across the world.
Came in with the heat right there, Carson. Good work. Speaking of heat, I'm going to bring it back to Saudi Arabia. Carson, what do you know about this city project called Neom?
I haven't heard of it.
Perfect. This will be great. So Neom is a proposed city that is going to be built from scratch by Saudi Arabia using funds from like the Public Investment Fund and things that are used by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the king. It's basically them saying, we want to, again, diversify our economy. One of the ways they want to do it is by building a 26,500 square foot futuristic city, and it is a highly ambitious project. It's got several sub-projects planned within it. The main projects within this city are The Line, Oxagon, Trojana, and Sindola. Okay, now the 2 I'm mainly going to talk about are The Line and Oxagon, because those are the 2 main big projects and also have a lot more to do with infrastructure and supply chain things.
Okay.
So, The Line. What is The Line? It is a 106-mile long narrow city that stretches through a desert landscape, which is like in between all these mountains and reaches from the Red Sea coast all the way inwards towards the middle of Saudi Arabia, where residents will essentially live within these 2 walls that are mirrored, and the entire community is going to be car-free, zero emissions, and is essentially promoted as a megastructure designed to endorse a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. Okay, so I basically just read you the PR. What is it actually? Well, that's a little tougher to describe. The design of it is envisioned as 2 mirrored parallel walls that are like 1,600 feet tall and go like 656 feet wide and just houses everything within those two mirrored walls. Okay. Everything will be like vertical layered within the structure. You'll have neighborhoods, parks, schools, shops, everything that you would need within a 5-minute walk. It's going to have renewable energy sources like solar and wind panel. Climate control technology will maintain a comfortable temperature year round, which is important when you're in the desert. All sounds pretty great, right? All sounds like a utopian, albeit weird design.
For some reason, it makes me think of that movie Elysium.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Absolutely.
It kind of makes me think of that.
This is something that you would see in Dune, almost. Like you just see this giant mirror in the middle of the desert.
Oh, so when you say mirror, you literally
I mean it. It's a mirror.
I thought you meant like the same stuff is built on one side that's on the other
No, it's
side.
literally mirrors, dude.
Literally mirrors.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's interesting.
There's mirrors on each side. Everything I just read to you sounds fantastic. In reality, well, they're making progress, and it is going to happen. But when they said it was going to be 106 miles long, no. They actually came back and decided later, no, we're actually going to make it about 1.5 miles. And that'll be done by 2030. It's going to end up being about 98% smaller than what they originally designed it to be. But even with it being 98% smaller than what it was originally intended to be, it's still going to be an intense construction project, which has been going on for the past few years. Construction, like I said, it is underway. They already have some infrastructure. You can even see in some drone videos the basic structure of this, line in the desert. Moving on from the line, we have something that's a little bit more industrial and supply chain focused. This is called the Octagon. The Octagon is basically supposed to be this like partially floating port city. It's in the shape of an octagon, but they call it an oxagon. I don't know. It's just whatever. They decided to name it something different. So basically imagine this massive octagonal shaped industrial city and port facility, but it's like partially on land and also like partially in the water. The idea of it is that it's supposed to be a fully automated port facility that's equipped to handle the next generation of cargo ships efficiently. And now it's set up very well right there on the Red Sea, basically right at the entrance or exit, depending on which way you're going, of the Suez Canal, which, 12% of all of the world's traffic goes through there. So that's an important location. The city itself is going to house factories that are focused on high-tech industries like biotechnology, robotics, sustainable materials. It's essentially aiming to position itself as a logistics hub. Like it'll all be within one area, right? You can drop off, get it manufactured, and then send it right back out in the exact same spot.
So you build everything right down the road from where it ships out anyway.
Yes.
Is that the idea?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The status of this one now, the Octagon is probably the least developed of all the projects that are happening right now in NEOM. Originally, they were like, yeah, we'll probably have the port open by 2025, but from what I'm seeing in some of the progress pictures and whatnot, I doubt that tremendously. Really, the closest project that they've got done is Sindola. Sindola is right below where the line is in this little area of islands, and they are trying to turn this into like a resort vacation area. This project involves basically turning an island into a luxury island resort with like the most high class stuff you can possibly find, basically 5-star restaurants, golf courses, the works. They are actually expected to have their first guests arriving towards the end of 2024, maybe even early 2025. So that's actually doing very well. Trojena is another one where it's like nestled in the mountains north of the line. Okay. This is supposed to be like a ski resort.
In the desert.
In the desert. Yes, a ski resort in the desert, exactly. And there are a ton of other smaller sub-projects going on within NEOM, but those are the 4 main ones. Now, NEOM faces a lot of hurdles and challenges, as you would imagine. Like building buildings on top of water or building a giant mirror in the middle of the desert, stuff like that. So, I mean, constructing a massive linear city like the line, especially in a harsh desert environment, presents like enormous engineering complexities, as you would imagine. Even being able to develop sustainable building materials like they've advertised, or even implementing those advanced climate control systems within 2 giant mirrors, and somehow also ensuring that the structural integrity of this thing stands up. That's going to be tough. That's already insane. But I think probably the biggest hurdle, which we've already seen hit the line, is just the financial feasibility of it. This is going to cost trillions of dollars.
Easily.
And so it really kind of raises a lot of questions about the financial viability of it. The entire project is intended to basically, again, diversify their economy, make it something different, make a manufacturing economy in the Octagon, make a living, somewhat middle-class neighborhood in the line, make like super rich hotels and super rich resorts and skiing in the desert. It sounds fantastic, but I mean, the idea of them having enough money to actually pull this off is far-fetched, I believe, especially when you're like, I'm going to build a 100-mile long city. And they're like, never mind, it's going to be about a mile.
I guess it's state funded, I would assume.
Well, yes and no. So Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, which is called the Public Investment Fund, that is what's directly financing it. But that fund is directly controlled by the Crown Prince. So a lot of it comes from foreign investments and things that are a little bit flimsier to like put a price tag on. The fund itself is estimated to contribute around $700 billion to the project.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. $700 billion would typically be enough to do anything you want, but
not
for
in this
NEOM,
case.
not in this case. No, not when you're trying to build the city of the future in the desert. Also, to make it work, you have to be able to attract businesses and manufacturers to that area. There's also a ton of sustainability concerns, even though it is built as like the sustainable city of the future. Building it is the problem, not when it's actually built. Just building this thing, the construction of the entire city could have a total carbon footprint of 1.8 gigatons of CO2, which is more than 4 times what the UK puts out annually. So, even though it is billed as a sustainable city of the future, building it is not going to be sustainable at all, because you just simply can't. And then also, there's going to be a lot of social and ethical concerns with things of this nature. A lot of villagers have been forced to move.
Right.
A lot of workers are complaining about horrible work conditions. I'm sure that the wages probably aren't that great because you're just doing manual labor in the desert. Like, it's probably not going to be great. Why are they even building it? Well, I mean, again, you've got to diversify the economy. You have to promote yourself as a bigger name in the global economy. And I mean, obviously this is going to create a lot of jobs too. It can bolster your economy from the inside out if it works. If it works, then you can future-proof your entire economy. You ain't got to worry about whether or not oil prices are going down because we have all this other stuff.
Because
now.
all this other stuff in the background.
But for the time being, their economy is still very much tied to oil, which is delaying these projects significantly. So I do think there's a lot of interesting projects going on in that area of the world. Some of the most innovative projects going on in the world, but also probably some of the most far-fetched.
Yeah, creative, far-fetched.
Yeah,
you know,
very ambitious. I would like to
Ambitious,
see how this all turns out. I mean, at least there is visible progress. Only time is really going to be able to tell if this is all going to be worth it because they're pouring in trillions of dollars to
Right.
this stuff. So it better work.
If it doesn't, you just live in front of a big wall.
Yeah.
a giant mirror in the desert. Just, it's like this light we have shining in our face.
Yeah,
times
exactly.
A million. Like, oh god, it's so bright.
Why did we move to the desert?
This is not what they told me it was going to be.
So bright. We've got a little game to wrap it up here. Grace over here in the back in the peanut gallery. She is going to show us 5 different construction projects, infrastructure things, buildings, stuff. And we have to basically guess what it is and where it is, essentially. I think, are we starting off easy and going harder? Is this how this is going to go? Yeah? Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, show us the first one, Grace. What do we got?
All right.
So we have to think of where that is.
That looks like the bridge in Panama that like goes over one of the entrances there. Is this in Florida? It is in Florida. Is this? Am I correct?
You're correct.
Oh, hey.
Oh, you got it.
Woo!
PCB, baby.
It is called the Hathaway Bridge.
Hathaway
which
Bridge
I
and
did not
Hathaway.
know, but I mean, it's kind of iconic. You go over this bridge every time you're going to the beach.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I've definitely, yeah, okay.
Early childhood.
I knew that
memories.
looked familiar, man. That's crazy.
Hell yeah,
I-
we're going over the bridge.
I did not think I
We're
was going to
here.
get that right. Panama. That would be the Hoover Dam.
That's the Hoover Dam.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, maybe I went
Yeah.
too easy.
Oh, no, we're nerds.
Just get on Google Images and
Yeah.
look at bridges and dams and stuff.
Big Dam fans. Oh, Big Ben,
in
baby.
London.
Which one is it?
Wait,
There
what?
are many replicas.
What you mean? That's a replica?
It's a replica.
That's a replica?
And it
Oh, no. Is this also in England?
No.
This is not in
It's
England.
the US.
Is that one in
That's
Las
gotta
Is
be
that in Las
Vegas.
Vegas?
Oh,
are you
man.
serious?
I would have thought so. Just, New York?
Florida.
It's in
Florida again.
Is it Disney World?
Kissimmee. Of all places, it's in Kissimmee, Florida.
Kissimmee, Florida.
I don't even
And
know.
Why?
To a T, I don't know, but there's a bar in it.
Okay, cool.
There's things. Yeah, kind of weird.
All right,
kind of
then.
strange.
Okay, that was a curve.
It's a
Was that,
replica.
yeah, that's a curveball.
That's why it's just the sky in the background.
Yeah, probably.
That is. Ooh, is
Is
that
that
in
the
Seattle?
Space Needle in Seattle? Is that Toronto? Or is that Seattle? That is Toronto? All right, so that's Toronto.
It is
Okay,
in
so that's
Toronto.
I forget
Okay.
what it's called, but that's the thing that Drake was sitting on in Views. Yeah.
Okay.
It's called the CN Tower.
Oh, cool. I'm pretty good at this game.
It
You're
looks
doing
like
pretty
a
good.
Space needle. Like
Yeah, the space nipple.
that.
You almost said it. All right. Last one for us, Grace. What you got? Oh, that's in Singapore. It's it's actually a casino.
Yes.
Casino.
Yeah, it's a casino.
Nice.
That's a casino. I don't know the name of it, but I do know it's a casino.
I was
in
going to say it
Singapore.
looks like Stonehenge, but modern.
Yeah, it's like modern Stonehenge.
There's a boat on top of it.
Yeah.
Fun fact, it's like a rooftop bar. It's called Marina Bay Sands.
I'm pretty good at
nice.
this game.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
As long as Big Ben is in the right country, I'm pretty good at it. So that'll be the end of the episode, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something about some new construction projects going on. If you're interested in any other supply chain, transportation topics, check out our description. We have a newsletter, social media channels, website, all that good stuff. If you have any ideas for future episodes, leave those down in the comments. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks.